Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. A couple of weeks ago we talked about LG pulling their ATSC 3 tuners out of their new televisions. And this week we have an update on the patent fight because a number of key players in the ATSC 3 television standard have spoken out with filings to the FCC. And we're going to take a look at what they are saying right now. Now, I covered this topic extensively a couple of weeks ago, but in a nutshell, what's happened here is that LG, the television manufacturer, lost a lawsuit brought against them by a company called Constellation Designs. And in losing that lawsuit, LG is now required to pay $6.75 per unit sold to this company that brought the lawsuit against them. Constellation Designs claims that they have a patent for how the ATSC 3 signal is delivered to televisions, and LG was the party responsible for designing that part of the standard, which is why Constellation Designs went after them first. The verdict, though, is only for $1.6 million because that's all the TVs that they've sold so far. Not that many, but they figured they've got a lot of liability now hanging over their head. And in the meantime, as this is continuing to move forward, they're going to pull the tuners out of the new television so they don't have to pay anything more. Now, in the aftermath of this, LG made a filing to the FCC, and in that, they're urging the Commission to continue its inquiry into this area and to recognize the benefits of RAND behavior. That stands for reasonable and non-discriminatory. And what's happened here with ATSC 3 is that all the players in the ATSC 3 standard have agreed to play fairly because you have competitors who are contributing parts of the standard and then everyone is going to be able to use it. So rather than have a scenario where LG could charge Samsung more, for example, for their patent because Samsung is a competitor, everybody pays the same. It's an even playing field. If you want to make a tuner or a television, you pay one money to a patent pool and everybody's covered. And that was kind of what they set up here. The problem, though, is that the way they're handling the RAND behavior for ATSC 3 is different than how they handled it for ATSC 1.0. And there is a report from a liberal think tank called New America. And although I know people sometimes don't like to hear political positions on things, I think for a lot of people concerned about this new TV standard, this article is actually a very good explainer of how things have worked in the past. So on the ATSC 1.0 standard, there was a RAND requirement that the FCC actually imposed on all of the parties through regulation. So nobody could step out of line here, and that threat prevented a lot of these companies that might have had a claim to something from going forward and suing because it may be for naught if the regulator shuts it down. And as we all know, ATSC 1.0 has existed for a long period of time. There are a lot of patented technologies that go into it, not the least of which are the MPEG compression technologies, the AC3 Dolby Audio, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's largely worked out pretty well. What's happened this time with ATSC 3 is the industry got the FCC to agree to let them handle the RAND requirements here so that the ATSC 3 standard body, not the FCC, will enforce these RAND requirements across all of their members. Now, this New America report on patents came out in 2018. Their concern back then had nothing to do with what we're dealing with today, but rather the fact that Sinclair Broadcasting, through a subsidiary, holds at least a half a dozen patents that are part of the ATSC 3 standard. They were concerned that they could at some point in the future, without any regulation, step outside of these RAND requirements and take control over the standard in a way that might limit opportunity for competitors to be a part of it. That hasn't happened to date. They have been playing by the industry rules. They have put their patents in the patent pool, and there's nothing to suggest that they are looking to do that in the future, but there's nothing that holds them to that RAND requirement other than the industry rules. Now, what's been really interesting over the last couple of days has been looking at some of the responses that the industry players have been filing with the FCC, because remember, LG suggested that maybe the FCC might want to look into this. They weren't calling for regulation specifically, but they did ask the Commission to continue looking at this requirement because this is something that's a real threat to their business when somebody from outside the party here can go after them in court. Now, the first one I want to pull up here is a statement from the ATSC standards body. And what they said is that failure to abide by the patent policy, which are these RAND requirements, may result in the termination of rights to participate in ATSC processes. However, there is no obligation to join or participate in ATSC in order to develop and/or license a patent related to any ATSC standard, and non-participants like Constellation Designs in the process are not obligated to abide by the ATSC patent policy. And that's kind of where we're at right now, because it's not a regulation, it's a voluntary policy, but if you don't volunteer to follow it, you can do whatever you want, which is exactly what's happening here. Now, some of the ATSC members have been very vocal in their opposition to the FCC regulating this, kind of running counter to what LG was asking for. So the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, says it is unclear how the Commission could plausibly purport to regulate every entity claiming to hold a standard essential patent, although they kind of do it now with the ATSC 1 standard. The only development of note in the record, LG's decision with respect to its 2024 TV lineup, does not suggest that there is a widespread issue with the availability of consumer equipment that Commission action, if authorized, would help to solve. We urge the Commission to take no further action at this time. The Consumer Technology Association, who also hosts the big CES show every year, agrees with the NAB. When entities claim to be holders of essential patents in ATSC 3 technologies and are allowed to hold innovators hostage, consumers lose. That's definitely true. But the CTA strongly believes that the transition to ATSC 3 must remain voluntary and market-based, not guided by government mandates nor by pressure from patent assertion entities and non-practicing entities. Avanci is one of the groups that manages the patent pool. And what they said was that when the true facts are considered, there is clearly no justification or need for the Commission to attempt to regulate the licensing of ATSC 3 patents. And Sinclair Broadcasting, through their subsidiary One Media LLC, was pretty terse in their response here. They said, "We respectfully ask the Commission to resist the invitation to immerse itself in the role of patent licensing czar. Given the lack of FCC jurisdiction or expertise in patent licensing and the extraordinary bureaucracy requested, the principles advocated by some commenters are particularly inappropriate." Now, they're not referring to LG here. They're referring to a few industry watchdog groups that want the FCC to regulate these patents now, and that's who they were responding to. But clearly there is some probably discomfort within the group, because you have one of the key players, LG, hinting to the Commission that they might want to look into regulating this, whereas the rest of the industry says no way. So we're going to have to see what develops here. I've been keeping an eye on the filings here because I've certainly been following all of the comments that you have been filing in regards to the DRM issue, which we are going to revisit in the near future. But if you are interested in kind of following along developments here, the link that you see on screen here will take you to the comment page. There are now 3,895 filings. I think we consumers opposing DRM represent the largest quantity of filings that have come onto the FCC's docket to date. So thank you all for continuing that advocacy. And again, we'll talk more about that in the near future. Now, what's going to happen here with Constellation Designs? So, of course, there's going to be an appeal on this lawsuit. My prediction is that someone's going to buy them, and the likely purchaser will probably be somebody within the ATSC 3 group, so they can take them out of the equation completely. The problem, though, is that there might be other patents out there that might find their way to a courtroom, and that could reignite this all over again. So who knows where this is going to go? No doubt anyone who saw Constellation Designs be successful in this lawsuit is probably looking very closely at the many, many patents that make up the standard to see if there's anything that they have that can be brought into a lawsuit here, because there is no regulation around this RAND requirement, and that, I think, is where we'll start seeing some groups poking holes. But in the meantime, I think Constellation Designs is small enough that they could be easily purchased by one or more of these conglomerates, and we'll have to see what happens next with this. And of course, I will keep you up to date as things go on here, but there's not going to be any kind of quick solution to this issue. I don't think we'll see the ATSC 3 tuners in these LG TVs for some time to come. They are clearly waiting for the commission to take action before they go back into it. And short of either buying them or defeating them on appeal, I think for the time being, LG is out, even though they are a very important part of this group. For now, I think they're staying in the ATSC body, but for now, you won't be able to tune ATSC 3 content without an external tuner on a new LG television. We'll be back with more on this topic in the near future. Definitely make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be back again before you know it. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.